Hey guys, Mighty Marie here, coming to you tonight to discuss the second video in my series on parental rights. This video is going to focus on reproductive rights. If you haven't seen my first video in this series, that basically just talks about my view of fathers and the state of fatherless homes in the United States, I encourage you to go ahead and check that out. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So, it's not specifically related to the topic of, or exclusively related to the topic of reproduction. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of paid leave. And when we come full circle, you'll, I think, see why. So, here in the United States where I live, we have no guarantee of any kind of paid parental leave. Certainly not any guarantee of paid maternal leave. We do have FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, but this is unpaid. It guarantees a woman who gives birth to a child up to 12 weeks of time off, unpaid, to care for herself, care for her child, and do the things that she needs to do. Now, there is a medical reality behind giving birth to a child that exclusively impacts people who are born female, because those are the people who give birth to children. And the medical reality is that women need a certain amount of time to recover from the trauma of giving birth. Now, some women have a very easy delivery and it's completely uncomplicated, and that's wonderful for them. But unfortunately, a lot of women don't experience that. There's a lot of physical trauma that occurs giving birth to a human being, even through a normal delivery, let alone if you have to have a cesarean section. So we give these women up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave, except that we don't. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, FMLA only actually covers 59% of U.S. working women. The reason for that is there are really specific regulations about who can get FMLA. You have to work a specific number of hours in a year for an employer. You have to have been employed for more than a year, and your employer has to employ more than 50 people. So, for instance, women who are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs, they don't get enough hours with any one employer to be covered by FMLA. So they're just totally out of luck. They're not guaranteed any time off. And if they need to take any significant amount of time off, they're going to lose their job. As a direct result of that, again, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, 25% of women go back to work 10 days after giving birth. Now, I don't know who their doctors are or how they got that waiver signed, but my doctor wouldn't let me go back to work a second before I'd been off for at least 6 weeks. So I have a feeling sometimes doctors are just signing releases because they know the woman's going to be out of work and homeless if they don't sign the waiver. So I consider this a serious problem, and I think it's something that we need to address. The reason I bring it up is because when we're talking about paid leave, we're usually talking about the time that people need to bond with their children, the time that they need to adjust to having a new child in the home. And it's absolutely true that fathers get nada when it comes to paid leave to spend time with their kids. And I believe that fathers deserve and need that same opportunity to bond with their children as mothers. But here in the United States, our system inherently values labor over laborers. And that's not a criticism, it's just the way it is. So can we find common ground? And I think the answer is yes. Give all parents a guaranteed period of paid time off. Businesses are not going to like it, but it's good for men and women. Why is it good for women? We know it's good for men because they need this opportunity to bond with their children. But why is it good for women beyond the simple guarantee of the paid time off when they have a child and they need time to medically recover? Well, we know from the data that's available that women and men perform equally in their jobs early on in their careers. In some studies, women, it would seem, are actually faring better early in their careers financially. But this all changes when women start having kids. An estimated 4% salary penalty, I guess you could say, is applied to a woman per year per child. So she starts to dramatically, well, I guess 4% is not real dramatic, but I'm sure it can feel pretty dramatic. So she starts to suffer a financial penalty as soon as she starts to have kids. Again, it's just the reality of our economic model here in the United States. We value labor over the laborer. And this penalty is applied to them because they need time off. Paid family leave would give men an equal opportunity to be with their children, but it would also give women an equal opportunity for earnings by reducing the income penalty that comes with procreation. People who are biologically female we need them to have kids in order to continue our species, in order to continue our society, but we economically penalize them for doing so by guaranteeing paid leave for both men and women. If men take the paid leave, then that penalty ceases to be applied. Or maybe it's applied equally across the board. I'm not sure. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, and it's something that I really felt I wanted to talk about, now we get into the real sort of thorny issue. Because let's be real, paid leave is easy. That's a softball. Now we get into the thorny stuff. And that is the choice to become a parent or not, control of one's reproductive destiny. So, women have lots of choices when it comes to their reproductive destiny. We can choose to conceive or not to conceive. Once conception has occurred, we can choose to carry the pregnancy to term or not. If we choose to carry the pregnancy to term, we can choose to give that child up for adoption. Or in most states, we also have the choice to completely freak out at the last minute and drop the child off at a safe haven location. Men don't really have any real reproductive choices currently. They basically have the choice to use protection or get a vasectomy or not. And I know that when this topic comes up, a lot of people like to bring up the issue of being tricked into fathering a child. And I won't deny that that does happen. So then that leads into the topic of the possibility of a financial abortion. There was a case in Florida, and forgive me, I forget most of the details about it. I read it a while back. There was a gentleman who brought suit against his lover because in the suit he claimed he had been very clear with her that he did not wish to father any children with her, and she tricked him under false pretenses into getting her pregnant. He brought suit, and he said that since he had been very clear with her up front and she had gotten pregnant under false pretenses, that he felt he should not be financially liable for the child. Now, in that case, the judge in the state of Florida ruled that because the state has a vested interest in the well-being of the child, that the man could not choose to have this financial abortion. So we know that they have this financial abortion law in Sweden, or the financial opt-out. I don't know what you'd want to call it. And I personally would support similar legislation here in the United States, but I have to be honest, I have a few caveats. The first of which is, from what we know of the ruling by the judge in Florida, once a child is born, there is an interest, according to the state, to have both biological parents contribute financially to the well-being of the child, or give the kid up for adoption so that its adoptive parents can become financially responsible for the child. So any kind of legislation like that would necessarily have to the opt-out would have to occur prior to birth. It would have to occur while the woman was pregnant and while she was still early enough in her pregnancy that she had the opportunity, if she chose, to abort. Now, whatever your personal views of abortion are, it's legal here in the United States, but if I'm being completely honest, that legality is tenuous. The Supreme Court could very easily be flipped depending on who our next president is or how many Supreme Court justices this president has the opportunity to appoint. Beyond that, the laws regulating abortion are different in every state here in the United States. In some states, you can have an abortion very late in your pregnancy. In other states, I think the most limiting state is 10 weeks. I could be wrong about that, though. I know quite a few states limit it to 12 weeks. So that would require some sort of formal notification of the pregnant woman to the man that she believed to be the father of her child, or maybe in some cases multiple men, so that they would have the opportunity to opt out formally, and then she could make her decision from there. My concern with a law like that is I think it would need to be linked to the legality of abortion. I believe that I could conceive of a future where that law was on the books, where this, Swedish model law was on the books, and then the legality of abortion was removed. So if there was some way to link the two of them together to say, while women have this reproductive right, men will have this right. If this right is revoked, then this right is also revoked. But I'm not sure, given the legal justifications for abortion, that that's even possible. So I'm trying to keep this pretty quick, and I will just say that I believe that control of one's reproductive destiny for women is control of one's life. I think in very real ways that is also true for men. You may lack the same medical concerns that women have when it comes to reproduction. However, the ability to plan for one's future financially is the same. The ability to plan one's career, one's education, all of those issues remain the same. So I do support reasonable modifications to our laws to allow men to not father children when they don't want to. I mean, biologically, we can't take it away, but we can at least remove the financial obligations. We can give men the right to say, I don't want to be a father. You have 20 choices laid out in front of you in terms of what you're going to do. Here's where I stand. I don't want to do this. Now, in a really weird way, I think that giving men the ability to financially opt out would be good for women. Because at least then we know exactly where we stand. If a guy has no choice and he's like, well, I'm going to be there, and then he's not, what are you going to do? You've got a kid, you thought he was going to be there because he was just saying what he felt like he had to say because he didn't really have any choices in the matter anyways. And the kid's 5 years old and you're not getting any child support and you're doing it on your own, and that kind of sucks. I think it would be better for women to know exactly where they stand when they go to a man and say, we've made this human together that's growing inside me. What's the plan? The man can say, I'm out. And then she can make her decisions from there. And that may be harsh and awful and make her cry, but at least she knows where she stands. So that is my take on reproductive rights for men and women in the United States. This again is my second video in the series. My next video is going to be on custody issues, and I'm sure when we get into that, things will start to get a little bit thorny, but I look forward to your feedback. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe and like, and as always, feel free to suggest topic issues. I'm always interested in what you have to say.